You're listening to Pitch Talks, bringing you the game.
Hello, and thank you for joining us on Pitch Talks, a UK top 4 careers podcast focused on giving you exclusive how-to guides to help you understand what it takes to land your dream role in sport. Today, myself and Sam are excited to introduce to you Jordan Brown, who has recently taken the job as the social media editor for Manchester United. Remember, if you have any questions about working in sport or need some advice, make sure you get in touch on any of our social platforms or drop us an email at mitch@pitch-talks.com.
This is Pitch Talks, bringing you the game.
So Jordan, thank you so much for coming onto our podcast. How are you?
No problem at all. Nice to meet you both. Yeah, I'm great, thank you. Surviving in the hot conditions, just about. But no, it's enjoying life at the moment.
Fantastic. Well, firstly, Jordan, I'd like to understand where it all kind of started for you. Where was the massive passion for sport? Where did it come from? And, did you find it getting difficult to get started within the sports industry?
Good place to start. When I was sports my life, basically, since, the day I was born, my dad was a professional footballer. So I remember vaguely remember and seeing photos and stuff, being like a little boy and at Lincoln City at Sincil Bank, sort of kicking a ball about before I can remember walking or talking, to be fair. But yeah, that's where my passion first came from, and it was sort of like brought up through the family, whether it was through my dad, my uncles, my mum, my grandparents. Like sport was the go-to, and I've always had a passion for it. I've always been willing to try out different sports, and right from a young age. And growing up, I probably realised that I wasn't necessarily going to be good enough to become a professional. Probably getting to the age of about 10 or 11, you realise the harsh realities. And it's sort of then like I had a bit of a mindset switch to think, how can I stay involved in football, or how can I be realistic in my targets and looking where I want to be in 5, 10, 15 years time. And it first started with the Lincolnshire Echo, not far from where I'm from in Lincoln. Just got in touch there, and they offered us a week's worth of work experience while I was first year sixth form, so about 16 years old. And I was put with a guy called Lee Curtis and John Paike, who were outstanding with me, and it's all just gone on from there, really.
I'm glad you touched upon actually your work experience, because that's what we quite would like to come on to now. So a lot of our past guests have shared about the power of experience and how it gets you into the industry. So during your time at uni, you spent a lot of time pursuing football writing positions. So with Unilad, the matchday reporting with Setanta Sports, and then the Sky Sports News placement. What did you learn through your time during these placements? And looking back today, how valuable were these opportunities for you?
Oh, they were massive. Like, I can't begin to describe how important I felt that they were for me at the time, and how important they were for me moving forward. I felt like, starting at the Lincolnshire Echo first and foremost, while I was at sixth form, sort of like really gave me the appetite to want to get involved in sports media. Then sort of going into university, volunteering full time for a local football team up there, doing their sort of like social media and stuff like that, and match day programs, just being an all-rounder, press officer, filming the matches. That sort of give us the leverage, and so to speak, to pursue further opportunities. And it just furthered my appetite even more. And then sort of the learning you get at the places like Unilad, Sky Sports, BBC Sport, Setanta is like next to none. They're all national, international brands, or international news organisations. So like, I don't think I can put a value on it. I think the value is actually trusting yourself and actually wanting to go out there and put yourself in the position to learn in the first place. Because if you're willing to work hard and willing to develop skills that you may already have or you don't have at all, and put yourself in difficult positions, and show a real willing to these people that you have a work ethic, even if you might not be a 10 out of 10 in terms of standards, But if you can put that work ethic in and prove that you're willing to improve yourself and, offer to do things that other people may not want to do, then that really makes yourself stand out. And then that does put you in the position to get these opportunities at places like Sky and BBC, where, one day I'm sat in a university classroom, the next day, I remember being sat in a newsroom next to Jim White and, funnily enough, Dermot Gallagher, because he runs the referees part of the Sky Sports News programme, and it was next world, and it sort of inspires you to want to have that on a daily basis, really.
You might have just touched on it there, but you sort of kind of led on to my next question was, do any of those work experience that you did whilst you were at uni stick out more for the experiences that you gained, or even the skills that you gained from those work experiences? Is there sort of one that sticks out in your memory?
Yeah, I mean, we were just going off slightly. We was always taught to try and be an all-rounder while I was at uni. There was no point saying I want to go into, I want to be sports writer for the Telegraph when I leave uni. We were told never to go in with that mindset, basically because there's so many different kinds of people that want to be doing that. You've got to put yourself in a position where you are an all-rounder, because if you can say, oh, well, I can do this, I can do that, then it makes you more employable, so to speak. But in terms of experiences, I know this might sound a little bit daft to you, but I think Riot, who was the local football team that I was working for down there, I actually put I think that's invaluable, because I was going to, on a Tuesday night in December, I was going to an open ground stadium where I was having to do the filming, the photography, the interview, the match report, the tweets, and it's you wouldn't even dream of doing that in the position I'm in now, but it gives you the hard learning. And then obviously at the other end of the spectrum, I would also say being at Sky, because when you were at Sky, what they did for us was they didn't put you in one particular place. They spread you around the newsroom, essentially. So you were doing you worked with the live production team, you worked with the news writers, the graphics people. So that also ensured you were more of an all-rounder. And I can't put a price on stuff like that.
This is Pitch Talks.
Now, going on to your time as a football writer overall, what are your biggest challenges that you experienced, and that you think that those listening who are interested in a football writing role, or a type of role in football, or even not necessarily football, but sports writing, should be ready for or should be aware of?
The challenge is I'd probably be prepared to accept rejection to begin with. I know a lot of people that whether I went to university with, whether I've spoken to in the past, that sort of want something and they want the end product straight away, and without the back of experience, if you go and apply for work experience at Sky, it won't happen. But if you sort of applied for, like I say, the less glamorous stuff, and that gives you the leverage to be able to apply for Sky and then makes your CV stand out. One thing that we spoke about at uni quite often was everyone wanted to, or a lot of people wanted to cover the men's first team football, because they want, that was the most glamorous sporting team there, or it was the highest ranked football team, that a lot of them wanted to cover football. But they were saying, well, there's all this coverage you can do for the hockey team, there's all this coverage you can do for the American football team, you've got access here for this sport, for that sport, and you're showing again that you're an all-rounder. So I think one of the main challenges is be willing to step outside your comfort zone, and it's also accepting rejection, because rejection isn't a bad thing. There's not one person that I've come across that's landed a job that they're really happy with in football writing, sports media, whatever, that haven't had rejection. It's just how you respond to that rejection and how you're willing to prove people wrong, I guess.
Having learned about the fundamental experiences that you had very early on, so during education, all the work experience and how it's developed, I kind of want to come on to now your full-time roles. So coming to your very first position at Lincoln City FC as a media executive, just one of the main roles that stood out, or responsibilities that stood out for me, was the responsibility of co-controlling all their social media platforms. So it was much more a digital heavy role than what you were perhaps doing beforehand, as we've touched upon. What was it about that opportunity that made you go for it and almost come away slightly from the writing?
If I'm being brutally honest, to begin with, it was security. It was more of like a personal decision at the time because I'd come out of university and I'd been offered a job at Sky, but it was sort of like a freelance 0 hour thing where I was having to take a big gamble in moving to London. Although I saw that as the pinnacle of where I wanted to be, it was like a gamble for me. But I looked at it on the other end of the spectrum and I went, well, you know what? Like, I can work my way up the football pyramid by doing this, and I can, I don't have to work for Sky Sports News for me to deem, of course, it was an ambition of mine when I started university, but like things can change. And I looked at it and I was like, well, I can start working at Lincoln. I can, I'm like, it's my hometown club. It's a club I've always had a passion for. I can, I have a great background knowledge of the club. I can get creative on the social side of things. I can, there's a lot of good people there that are very well versed in whether it's running a football club or running marketing departments or just running the business side of things that I can sort of like take note from. And then I thought, well, I can take these bits and I can, football players always aspire to work their way to the top, so why shouldn't I? And that's where it went from, really. I just looked at it and I never thought it wasn't a case of, oh, I've got a job at Lincoln, I'm just going to apply for different jobs straight away. That was never how it worked. It was like, I can go to Lincoln, I can, I can set some strategies out, I can really take a hold of things, really push them to the next level, and then, see where it goes from there. And to be honest with you, it was one of the best decisions I think I've made personally.
Quite an exciting time to join your hometown club as well, when they'd just been promoted out of the National League, and then I think did you leave just as they were sort of going up out of League Two into League One?
Yeah, so yeah, it was pretty crazy really. I started back end of June 2017, so I got the first pre-season of them back in the Football League. Again, it was like the whole ethos of the club was changing. They was just bringing in a new chief executive, and they were really turning themselves from like a non-league club, because that's where they've been for 5 or 6 years, and they were trying to establish themselves off and on the pitch as a league club, which like a lot of clubs have struggled with, like looking from the outside in. And I really wanted to make the media side of things look as professional as possible, with a really talented team around us and bringing in new faces and stuff that can really sort of drove the team forward. But yeah, just talking about like on the pitch stuff, yeah, it was phenomenal really. Like that first season we got to the playoffs. Unfortunately missed out in the semi-final, but got to Wembley for the first time in the club's history in the EFL Trophy final, which again was a really historic day. And like the fact that we haven't had crowds and stuff like that now, to have like, I think it was just under 30,000 Lincoln fans there, was amazing. And then the following season to win the league, there was some really special days there, and it was sort of a day out, well, a season or 2 years rather, that'll forever stick in my memory really.
Yeah, and then sort of you almost continued your journey up the football pyramid as well, sort of moving on from Lincoln, then onto your time at Derby. How did that differ from your time at Lincoln?
So yeah, like the difference is phenomenal really. Like I said it to the guys at Derby, and I said it to the guys at Lincoln, not meaning any offence, but Derby have been Premier League. They're a huge club, and they are set up off the pitch, particularly like in terms of like the media side of things, and what they have with Ramsey TV. They're set up like for Premier League stuff. The facilities they've got there are phenomenal, and just the way that the work about things was like, it wasn't an eye opener, because I did half expect there to be a step up, but like it did feel like a new world when I first went there, just purely because the size of the stadium, for one thing. You were walking from one end of the stadium to the other, and you've got TV studios and all this, and it was amazing. And the difference and the detail and stuff like that was sort of similar in the way they went about things, but like it was just like the facilities, the number of staff, it just like it felt like a massive step, even though like if you look at the back end of last season, I think there was only like sort of 5 or 6 league places between them. But like in terms of stature of the club, it was like completely different levels.
So then, to raise the levels and the stature once more, we obviously come on quite nicely into your present role, which you started in May at the beginning of this year, I do believe. So from your first 3 months, what's it been like working, representing and creating content, which ultimately is then posted and shared on one of the leading sports social accounts?
Yeah, it's great. There's a really, really talented team there. Like there is that, like I was with at Derby and Lincoln, and it is completely different to Derby and Lincoln in a sense, but at the same time, like you're all working towards one goal. You from the moment I was at Lincoln to when I got to Man United, and still to this day, you're looking to create such engaging content, and you want to have channels that supporters are proud of, but also what you also want other football club sports teams look in and go, well, Man United do things this way. I want to sort of emulate this. I want to see our channels looking like this, and that's like hopefully like the long term goal. And to be fair, the guys at the club have got that in very good hands. They were doing it before me. They're doing it, while I'm gracious enough to be part of the team now, and hopefully like they continue to achieve great things. Because like I say, there's a really talented team there. From I've only worked there 2 months, a couple of months or so, and there's a really talented bunch of people there that will continue to drive it forward. But the feeling, when you see stuff go out and the amount of people that engage with it and stuff, like it can't be beaten. Really, it's nice knowing that work you've put in and thought about and worked as a team with. Really, that's the main thing. Like seeing our team being successful is a really important thing for me. Yeah.
Just to kind of touch on what you mentioned there about the sheer number of people that interact with the posts now that you're at Manchester United, do you feel that added pressure when you do put the content out that it is going to that many people?
Yeah, I suppose so. Like, I think if you worry about like stuff like that, then you'll be sweating on every single post that went out. There's a lot of like I say, there's so many talented people there, and stuff gets checked so much before it gets put out there that like you don't need to worry. Like at Derby and Lincoln, for example, it was sort of like the onus was on you 24/7 kind of thing to be responsible for the social channels. But it's there's such a talented team there that like they take that worry away from you. They put the confidence in you that like you can do your job kind of thing. And I suppose that there is always the element of, oh, have I done this right, or could I have done this better? But I suppose that's for looking back on, when at the end of the day, end of weeks, end of months and stuff, and thinking how can we improve things. But there's never not at United. I don't have the worry when I put things out. That, like I say, when it was just one man social team at Derby and Lincoln, there was that element, I must admit. But now there's a really, again, I keep using the word talented, but they are all the people around us, and they guide you along the way as well, really well, and there isn't a need to worry for me.
You're listening to Pitch Talks.
So then, sort of moving on to the skills that you've got now in the role at Manchester United, what are some of the core skills and duties that you have and you'd recommend to people listening along that they should go out and try and upskill, and just of want of people that are looking for a similar role?
Yeah, I mean, like I touched on earlier, I think like I would always recommend going out there and getting as many experiences as possible to begin with, whether that's at your local football team, whether it's at your local rugby team, just whatever. You go and develop a platform and become an all-rounder and be willing to put in the hard yards, and then opportunities will come forward to you. I have no doubt about that. If you're willing to put in the extra work to begin with to put yourself in a good position, then you're going absolutely the right way. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, try new things, take ideas from other sports, other clubs, keep an eye on their social platforms, take their ideas and make them your way. And just don't be afraid to try new things and try new opportunities. If I've tried some writing stuff, I've tried the press officer kind of thing and the filming and everything at the football club back in Sunderland. And I think you've just got to be brave and back yourself. Like, I think if you'd said to me, I was never phased about applying for Sky, but I can't remember there was many others at the time on my course that had even bothered applying for it. I don't know whether I can't remember, to be honest with you. If they did, then fair enough. But you've just got to back yourself. It's a really tough industry to get into. But if you're willing to put in those hard yards, like I say, try new things, willing to adapt to whatever, then you'll get rewarded in the end. I do believe that.
One final question from me, and it's a little bit of a light-hearted one, is does your job become easier if Manchester United have a good result on the pitch?
I can't comment on United because I've only worked a couple of games there at the back end of the season, but I could relate it to Derby and Lincoln more so. So it probably is transferable to United, yeah. And the answer in short is yes. The best thing as a social media person, you want plenty of goals and plenty of content that you can work with. You can't, you can joke around and stuff like that and put out more light-hearted content when you've been backed by a victory. But it's all about like in past roles, it's always sometimes you've got to find like different angles that supporters will resonate with. And to be honest with you, in short, from my experiences with my previous two clubs, I can tell you it is a hell of a lot easier working with a victory as opposed to a non-victory. It's like the same as a sign-in, something like that. You can have like small wins off the pitch, whether it's someone a fan's favourite gets a new contract that gives you a day or so's worth of content to work with, or even longer. Yeah, like I suppose even during the Euros, it was great to see several members of the United team get into the latter stages of the competition because it meant you could share their achievements, but it also, it was positive news to share with the supporters as well. So you want as much positive news that you can go with, but ultimately, it isn't always possible. But yeah, you just got to try and find ways to keep being positive, but also being realistic, I think.
John, throughout the episode, you've provided unique career advice for each of the roles that you've done. However, just as a final summary, if you will, for the episode, what advice that perhaps you haven't touched upon already would you give to people looking to pursue a career, whether it be just in sport in general or writing or marketing?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a few pieces that I think are just important as each other for me. I think becoming that all-rounder, like I've touched upon a few times, I think you've got to. You can't just restrict yourself to one thing, because I don't think opportunities will necessarily come up as regularly as if you can broaden your horizons and then condense it. So like when I was at Lincoln, I went in there and sort of like took the reins of the social media side of things and just sort of like made them sort of my little area to work on, and I took pride in it, and the other guys worked with their other bits, but would always be willing to muck in with that. But like the one thing I really set my sights on was the social media. But you can do that once you've got yourself in that position in the first place. I think networking is massive. I think you've got to be willing to, or you've got to be brave enough to go up to that guest speaker in your lecture. 9 times out of 10, you might only get a 30-second conversation with them, but they might drop you a piece of advice that you can relate to. They might give you a contact email that you can lean on them for certain things. I'd also, another one would, or a final one would be brave and back yourself, whether that's applying for opportunities, whether that's putting yourself forward to do things that no one else is particularly interested in doing. Like I said, going up to open air state or open air fields in Sunderland in -5 degree temperatures on a Tuesday night in December isn't what a 17, 18-year-old might think is the most glamorous thing when they're trying to break into the industry. But stuff like that has to be done. But you can only do that by being brave and trusting yourself, and actually it shows off a real desire to want to succeed and want to push yourself on further. And you'll find with clubs like that and what have you, that they're willing to give you unlimited access, so you can like I say, you can try new things. But that all comes down to being brave and and backing yourself.
Jordan, we've got a real glimpse of a number of different roles within the sports industry, from writing and then from one marketing nut to another. It's been great hearing about what you get up to on a daily basis, the roles, responsibilities, and how they've changed over time, working your way up the football pyramid, which I think is vitally important and one of the biggest lessons for people to take away today, plus the valuable career advice for those looking to get into the digital space as well. So all that leaves us to say is thank you so much for being on the podcast, and we wish you all the best of luck with the upcoming season.
No, thank you guys. Thank you for having me, and keep up the great work with the pod.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, there are so many more episodes to get stuck into. Whether you're looking to become a football agent, understanding the inner workings of sports sponsorship, or learning a little bit more about marketing, there are so many great career tips available right now. If you have some feedback, make sure to leave us your review on our Apple Podcast page or get in touch on our email address. This has been Pitch Talks, the sports career podcast focused on helping you get into sport.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Bringing You the Game by Pitch Talks. For more information on our latest episodes, careers advice, or to even get involved as a guest, get in touch with the team at mitch@pitch-talks.com or send us a message on any of our social platforms. Thanks for tuning in. Bringing you the game. Pitch Talks.
All Pitch Talk content is copyright protected.
Pitch Talks.